Our top focus right now is the decade-old Vistara, which is now known for its quality service, will be flying in air for the last time in November. As soon as Singapore Airlines informed the Singapore Stock Exchange about receiving approvals for foreign direct investment, Air India and Vistara have formally agreed on the merger. Vistara will merge within Air India on the 12th of November. Vistara is a joint venture between Singapore Airlines and the Tata Group, which also owns Air India now. Starting the 12th of November 2024, a unified airline will be in operation, and Vistara, the iconic brand which Tata Group and Singapore Airlines jointly set up, will become history. All existing flights under Vistara's purview will be operated by Air India. Singapore Airlines owns 49% stake in Vistara and will get almost 25.1% stake in the merged airline. The Tatas will have the remaining 74.9% stake. Vistara has been loved by passengers and has often been compared to the heydays of flying with the likes of Emirates or Lufthansa. So now the question that arises is, will this merger really help Air India become a world-class airline, and whether the merger will lead to a monopoly in the Indian airline segment or not? I have with me on the broadcast Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director of Air India. Joining us also is Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. We have with us Dr. Sharath Kohli, Senior Economist, and Sriram Khanna, Managing Editor of Consumer Voice. But let me begin this conversation with, if I can, bring on Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director of Air India. Mr. Bhargav, thank you so much, sir, for taking our time to speak to NewsX. Your voice and explanations will be extremely crucial for all our viewers that are watching us right now. I want to begin by asking you, what really will be the key benefits of the merger?
See, let's put it this way. When Government of India disinvested Air India, Tata acquired it. Tata was already running Vistara, and it was a natural thing that the merger will take place.
Right.
You cannot have Tatas as the promoters to have run two airlines, say for example, India to London. Can you have Vistara and Air India competing with each other? The answer is no. So if India needed a formidable airline, international airline, that can compete with Emirates, Etihad and the other Gulf carriers and Southeast Asian carriers or even European carriers, India needed a strong international player. What is unfortunately happening is that we're judging the merger between Air India and Vistara in relation to domestic market.
Right.
What we need to do is to do it for the international market. And the reason why they took 2.5 years plus to get the merger going was because when Tata's inherited Air India, it was in a bad shape. A large number of aircraft were on ground for want of spare parts. They had to be refurbished. Now they have reached a modicum level of standard of service, qualitative change, re-engineering of work practices, induction of new aircraft, and they're on the threshold of major expansion. So the merger is taking place at an appropriate time because, as we all know, Vistara was known as a good quality product. Air India had a perception which was of not a good quality product. Now that the product has been upgraded and you're somewhere at par with each other, the merger is taking place. So with the large number of aircraft that have been ordered, starts getting inducted, what you need is a total harmony as far as manpower is concerned, network thinking is concerned, growth programs are concerned. So in my opinion, the merger is just the right thing and is happening at the right time. And for the Indian aviation is that we should legitimately be proud in 6 months' time or 1 year's time when we give airlines like Emirates, Etihad, and even the Southeast Asian carriers a run for the money, because they'll have a good quality product.
Mr. Bhargav, how exactly does Air India then hope to achieve this boost? And how exactly does it plan on revamping its image before the world?
You see, let's put it this way. As I said, the perception has been very negative with regard to Air India.
Right, yes, absolutely.
Carried from the time when government owned Air India. Now, what Tatas have done in this 2.5 years' time is to refurbish some of the old aircraft. A3500s have been inducted into the A350s have been inducted into the fleet, and they're going to be starting operation from November onwards. So it's timed in such a manner that the perceptual change that they are seeking will come about. Let's look at the manpower. One was in merger, the critical part is manpower. Now, what happened was that in the 2.5 years since they acquired Air India, there have been 3 or 4 times the VRS schemes have been launched. So many old people have taken advantage of the VRS and gone away. And Tata's in their place have inducted new employees, which means the work cultural change, re-engineering of work practices, and getting on to systems which are customer friendly and younger crew members to come on board. So that's where the difference comes in. And once you have the new product being launched, like take for example, India JFK has a better product than India New Jersey at the moment. But come the next 6 months, when more planes have been inducted, all of United States will be covered either with the new planes or with the refurbished planes. So what happens in the US market, which is the largest one for Air India, or globally, is to have a perception change. People will erase the impression that they have of the past will get erased and a new image will get created. Now that is where I say is the fundamental difference that will come about, and Vistara will contribute to it, with Singapore Airlines having 25.1% post-merger. The technology flow, the innovative work practices, better work standards, etc. will be inherent part of Air India. So if you look at the merger from that perspective,
Right.
fabulous decision. Let's look forward, give Tata another 2 years' time. As I very often say, the merger, the acquisition of Air India by Tata's isn't akin to a T20 match. It's akin to a test match. 2.5 years have gone by. Let's look at another 2 years' time when we'll be legitimately proud of what Air India has become.
Mr. Bhargav, I'd also like to understand, as far as Air India's market share is concerned, somewhere near 9.3%, Vistara holding about 10% of the market share. Earlier, yes, they were competitors until, of course, the Tatas took over Air India, and the Tatas were already operating Vistara. As you've already explained to our viewers, that it was a tricky situation when it's the same parent entity that's literally holding 2 airlines which are meant to compete. But when we talk about now combining the market share, what does that mean for domestic and international competition?
You see, let's look at the domestic market first. Yes, I agree with you. Both Tatas and Vistara have had 10% each, and Air India Express has another 3-5% market share. Now with Indigo having 60% plus market share, and if you had splintered airlines with nobody commanding a dominating position, would have been that Indigos would have ruled the skies. Now when you have a major carrier, formidable airline combination, having close to 30% market share, you will be giving Indigo a run for the money, better from the market. Now, unfortunate part is that the smaller airlines that we have perished in the last few years. They've not been able to survive the onslaught because Indigo, with multiple frequencies on each destination, profitable airline, growth program that we have never seen before with 1,000 aircraft on order, etc. You will have to have a formidable airline, domestic airline from India, and that is what the merger between Air India and Vistara will provide. Come to the international sector. Air India has been the largest domestic international player from amongst the Indian carriers. Now, what you need to do is that if you have a large fleet, and which they will have, they've ordered aircraft, you do not have to necessarily operate services out of Delhi and Mumbai. Why were the Emirates and Etihad capitalizing? Because no passenger from Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Kolkata, etc. was wanting to come to the hub of Air India, Mumbai and Delhi, and then take an international flight. And they felt, why not fly directly to Dubai or Abu Dhabi and fly onward to the United States? Now, what happens in the next 2 years, or which has already started happening, is that they are no longer treating Mumbai, Delhi as the bases. They will commence operating direct flights. They're already doing flights from Bangalore to San Francisco. They will have direct flights to multiple points in the United States, from multiple cities in India, totally obviating the need for Gulf carriers or Southeast Asian carriers to funnel Indian traffic out of India to their hubs and then on to these destinations abroad. So significant change will come about. And look at from the Indian perspective, 2027, Indigo has placed orders for large haul, ultra capacity aircraft, ultra long haul aircraft. When they also get inducted, that will be the shining chapter in Indian aviation history, when international skies from India will also be dominated by Indian carriers.
At the same time, Mr. Bhargav, what really are you expecting or hoping will then become the ultimate benefit to the consumer at this point in time? Because from a consumer's perspective, honestly speaking, it's two companies that are merging, but what is in it for the consumers? Are we hoping that there, as you've mentioned, that there'll be now solid competition to Indigo, which is holding more than 50% of the market share, which sometimes also leads to, a lot of people have been complaining recently about the sort of charges that we see around a flight ticket and the multiple charges that people are today paying to just fly from one point to another, and the fact that they don't have too many options available. So now with this merger, how do you hope, or what do you think will happen from a consumer's perspective?
You know, this is like a fare being created that if you have a fewer airline, the fares will go up. The best guarantee against fares going recklessly high is that both Tatas and Indigo have placed orders for large number of aircraft.
Yes.
How can they sustain a market? If they have to keep inducting new aircraft, they have to ensure that the market is stimulated for growth, and the growth will only come if fares are affordable. You see, when you had 5-6 airlines go first collapse, Jet Airways collapse, they're unable to do it, and then you had left with these players. But it's better to have fewer airlines but stronger airlines rather than larger number of airlines but financially weaker airlines. Now take the case of SpiceJet, which you're currently witnessing now.
Yes.
SpiceJet is operating 1/3 the number of flights that they did 2 years ago. Now, isn't that affecting? So I would rather prefer Air India expanding, Indigo expanding, monopolizing the market, and as I said earlier, the best guarantee against fares being abnormally high is the large induction of capacity, because once they keep inducting new aircraft, they will have the need to fill up this aircraft. An aircraft can only be filled up if you have fares which are affordable.
Mr. Bhargav, at the same time, if we're looking at, say, the next few years, maybe 3 years or the next 5 years, if you're talking about an Indigo and an Air India-Vistara merger, then competing with one another and monopolizing the market in a way, a lot of consumers have also in the recent past then complained of the overall service or the overall experience that they get in some of these flights. And like I said, the consumer doesn't really have a choice at the end of the day when there is a singular player that's really taken over the market. How will Air India and Vistara after the merger then strike a balance, a neat balance between providing really quality service and also getting in the money they require to expand their fleet, to expand their staff?
You know, quality part, let's not compare, because Air India-Vistara combination will be a full service carrier, whereas Indigo is a low cost airline.
Yes.
That's one part of it.
Okay.
The second part that we need to understand is that Indigo will be growing, the fares are reasonable, will be high. Let's look at only 10 days ago. Indigo came out with a scheme that this is a 3-day window, and if you're wanting to buy tickets now for flying between such and such period, the fare was 1,111 and upwards from there. Because aviation industry being capital intensive, the fares are regulated, keeping in view the lean periods and the peak periods in the market. So when we normally look at extended weekends, holiday period, the fares are high. But we forget the part when airlines are offering far lower fares only to fill up the aircraft because you can't be flying empty. And one important thing that I keep reiterating, and I want to get it in public domain again, that unlike any other product, which if it is not sold today, can be sold tomorrow, like a motor car, a refrigerator, an air conditioner, etc. But in aviation industry, seat is a perishable commodity. Once a flight takes off, the value is zero. So it is as much in airlines' interest to get passengers to fill up the aircraft, and that can only be done if the fares are affordable, attractive enough for passengers to fly.
All right, Mr. Bhargav, thank you so much. Very interesting, very important perspective there from you, sir, on what's happening. This the big decision that has come about which will impact, of course, the aviation sector as well. I'll come back to you in just a moment. Let me bring in Sharad Kohli into the conversation as well. Sharad, you've heard what Mr. Bhargav has also had to say on the matter. What are your first thoughts when you sort of try to absorb what's happening as far as Air India and Vistara merging is concerned? What are your hopes and what are perhaps your fears as well?
Well, interesting insights, Devika. First of all, good evening to you, my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. Quite interesting insights by Mr. Bhargav. There's a saying in English, a proverb in English, you hear from the horse's mouth. So coming from someone who's been on the board of Air India, executive director, I think he's giving the right perspective. But what happened in the mobile industry? We had 4 or 5 players earlier. Now, at the end of the day, we have 2.5 players. I'm sorry, I'm calling them 2.5. There is Airtel, there's Jio, and there's a half or a lame Vodafone idea, which is just for the sake of being there. It is struggling to stay afloat. Well, my only concern is that the monopolistic tendencies, they tend to, because I fly a lot. And now you're not just hearing an economics perspective. You're also hearing along with an economist and who's also a regular consumer, a regular flyer. I fly all airlines, but I'm very sorry to say, and I think I would seek pardon from Mr. Bhargav, that what I've seen in Air India, ever since the Tata took over, the scene has been pathetic. I mean, they have been trying to improve, but the condition of aircrafts, you pull out the food table, the whole thing comes out. The screens, the entertainment screens, which are supposed to be installed in the aircrafts, they do not work. The attitude of the staff, unfortunately, although a lot of old people, as Mr. Bhargav said, they have now gone, there will be a lot of the VRS schemes, but even the younger lot, they seem to be very lackadaisical in their approach. We don't find them to be as hospitable as probably you would have expected post takeover by the Tata. So I felt there was some orientation which was missing, or probably maybe the time is less, but I felt the time which has lapsed now from the point Air India was taken over by the Tatas. I think in that times I expect Tatas to be doing much more than what they have done. They could have done better, but somehow maybe things are taking time, and maybe there are roadblocks ahead. Maybe, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So likewise, an airline cannot be built in a day, and especially when an airline which was ailing for decades altogether. It's not possible to have a magic wand and all of a sudden everything changes. I completely appreciate, but as a consumer, I expected better. Come to Indigo. Devika, the market share is more than 60%. You'll be surprised. And you can see that complacency in Indigo at this point of time. The Indigo was known for on-time flights. I'm sorry to say that a lot of flights of Indigo, they get delayed these days, which means they have moved away from the USP they had, that if you're booking an Indigo, you have to be on time. At the time, there was a pushback, even if they made you stand at the, at the tarmac, but there was a pushback at that time. At least they will try and do their best. But unfortunately, I do not see. There may be operational reasons in many of the cases, but I think it is gradually the element of complacency of having 60% plus share is coming in. So from that perspective, I feel when Vistara and Air India come together, they will have a combined market share at today's data, 23%. I think Indigo will have some reasons of concern that here is a player who's coming in to probably do some kind of market shopping here. And I have a feeling that Indigo's share will go down after this merger because the quality of services, Vistara, as you said, Vistara is fantastic. Vistara has given international level services. I don't know if it is because of Singapore Airlines or because the same Tata group for Vistara had different service standards, and the same Tata group for Air India has different service standards, but I've already spoken on that. I think Singapore Airlines, we all know, is a globally accomplished airline, and some standards have been brought into Vistara. So once they are together, now the problem would be that what I just spoke about Air India.
Yes.
So there is an airline which is at the top of its service. There is an airline which is struggling to give service. So when the two come together, I have a feeling that somewhere a balance would be stuck, because you cannot get the best of Vistara, and hopefully the worst of Air India that we see will also get better. So we are
Okay.
going to see an average kind of an airline coming up, at least for the beginning. I agree with Mr.
Okay.
Bhargav that you wait for 2 years and you'll see the difference. But I think this time of 2 years should be cut down, Devika, is what my thought is, because Indian aviation industry has been victim of losses, perennial losses, I would say. A lot of airlines have closed down. Indigo has just come into profit. SpiceJet is struggling to survive. So I think maintaining profitability with ATF prices, with staff costs,
Yes.
operational costs, parking costs, I think all these will have to be dealt with sooner than later, Devika.
Okay. All right. I want to bring in Wing Commander Praful Bakshi as well. Wing Commander Bakshi, your thoughts are? What do you feel? How hopeful are you as far as this particular merger is concerned? Because you have on the one hand, you have Air India, which is a brand in itself for many, many decades, and it takes a long time for any company or in any field for that matter to develop a brand identity. Today, all Indians do know about Air India, and then you have Vistara, which, as Sharad was also pointing out, as a consumer, has been providing really quality service, but both struggling in their own domains. Now merging, what are your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Devika. First thing, let me tell you one thing. This aspect, question of aviation and airline, Mr. Bhargav, we are very happy that he's with us. He's brought out a lot of points which are actually loaded with great amount of knowledge, which everybody must know. And of course, Mr. Sharad also, he deals in the economy. But let me tell you one thing. Aviation has various aspects. Yes, running it efficiently is there. The cost management is there. Earning per seat per kilometer, our formula is there. But there is something else. The maintenance of the airline, the safety of the airline, the overall, how does the airline merge in the overall aviation doctrine of India? That aspect has to be seen. We cannot see everything in piecemeal. One time, people swore by Air India. When I was a kid, I am telling you, people gave their right hand to fly by Air India, wanted to get photographed with Air India. Air India was a symbol of India. Let me tell you one thing. How come same airline, now you're doubting? Then Vistara also came up very nicely. This aspect is directly related to the management, how you manage the airline. And then management is because of economical factors. Now, there comes the role of Civil Aviation Ministry. How does Civil Aviation Ministry see all this? What is their national doctrine on aviation? Can the civil aviation contribute? I'm not talking of Air India or Vistara only. The larger picture, if they merge together, how will they contribute? Let me tell you one thing. There are two aspects which go hand in hand, aviation and tourism. Are they contributing? Are they complementary to each other, running the same relay race, passing the baton? Let me tell you one thing, this is very essential. So it is the efficiency of the ministry and DGCA. Do they know all these aspects? Do they respect all these aspects? What I am saying, I'm sorry, you will be surprised. When it comes to safety, you can point fingers at Air India now. You can point fingers like Mr. Just now he brought out that the tables falling off and all those things. I can understand. This is directly related to the supervision. There is a lack of supervision from the DGCA and the civil aviation. They're left on their own. Then training. Then question is the amount of accidents. What is happening to what type of aircraft? Why Boeing is having so much of problem? Why between Boeing and Airbus there is so much of competition? This we have to look into. Where is the weakness? This aspect also. Tata must get interested. But what is wrong with these aircraft? Why are they like this? What is the problem? What is wrong with this type of engine? What is wrong with this type of engine? What happened to the Patna air crash? With the Airlines Air 737-200? Why were people trying to hide the whole thing? Let me tell you one small example.
Right.
This may wake you up. When Patna air crash took place, I was called by a television and I was describing how could happen. The minister got up and said, no, it is pilot error within 1 hour. I said on television, how can minister tell it's a pilot error? There can be so many things like wind shear. There can be so many other things. Has he seen it? And we were discussing, Arup Ghosh was the anchor. And then they asked me, what should be done? I said, inspect the aircraft. There's so many passengers who have got off the aircraft. So, and you may have to ground the fleet. Moment I said this, there were 2 air marshals who were being sent retired by DGCA into the television to stop me from speaking this.
Okay.
This aspect I'm trying to tell you how the airline come into play. This aspect, and their manufacturers, Boeing, will be very interested.
Okay.
They will try to hide the facts. This is what is another problem. So, cost efficiency, everything, maintenance, good enough. But look at the other aspect aside too also.
Okay. All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.